Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Candid Christian Convos, the podcast. I am your host, Morewa, and this season we are talking about all things trusting God. In today's episode, I talked to my friend Uzoma about what it was like for her to trust God with her love life. Uzoma shares so vulnerably about her journey from heartbreak to healing and now to being married. She shares about the importance of community, the role that mentorship has played in her love life, how she is still trusting God today in her marriage, and what it looked like for her to trust God in the in-between. I just know that there are so many gems that are going to bless you in this podcast. So I hope you enjoy, maybe with a cup of coffee, maybe on your drive, maybe you're listening in the shower. But let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Hi.
Hi.
This new season of the podcast, I am asking all my guests a random question from Candid Christian Convos because that's the name of the game, it's the name of the podcast, you know, all the things. And I know you are no stranger to this game.
That's why I'm even scared already. Like,
I've seen you play a couple of times, so I'm excited. But the gag is, I also have to answer it, so my excitement is tempered a little. Okay. Are there any ways you can deepen your sense of community with other believers?
Honestly, I would say that I have a very strong community right now, like with other believers. Like, I would say most of my friends are believers, and most of the people that I speak to on a daily basis, at least, are believers. So I feel like I'm already really kind of deep into that. But in terms of deepening even more, I would say right now I was talking to one of my friends about this yesterday. I feel like I need an accountability partner when it comes to like the things of God, because lately I found myself just kind of not having structured routines that promote discipline in my walk with God. And so that sometimes leaves me leaving things to chance in terms of like my quiet time. I tried to make that better recently by like actually having a certain time that I must show up, which has helped. But I feel like if I had an accountability partner or even a prayer partner, that would really help. And I was telling my friend yesterday, prayer partner that's not my husband, because I don't know why. Like you would expect that it would be easier, but we already have prayers that we like pray together and whatnot. But I just feel like I need someone that's this sounds really bad. And I have not seen in Nigerian seeing finish. I have not seen my husband finish, but I feel like if I know that if I mess up, my husband would just be like, okay, let's try again.
Yeah.
So I need someone that will cause me to just, for lack of better words, jazz up and just like, be serious. So that's why that's what I'm feeling right now. I'm praying that God would send me, someone really soon because I feel like I really need it, especially in this season of my life. Yeah.
That's good. I think my answer is probably similar. I want to blame it on motherhood, but I think in general, just even before motherhood, I won't use that as a cop out. Even before motherhood, discipline was something I really struggled with. And recently, like last month, I did a Bible plan with a friend. I think we read through First Samuel, and it was really good because I found that when I have someone to talk to about what I've read, I remember it better. But I think that is one way that I think I can also deepen, like just Bible study with other people. The benefit I imagine is seeing how other people see things, because I think I've gotten quite comfortable not even being surrounded by people who think like me, but just with my own thoughts. Or maybe Max, like a sermon, and like I'm hearing that pastor's thoughts on the passage I've read, but I'm curious to hear how other people see things and are interpreting scripture. I feel like it would give me a more like well-rounded view of the word. So yeah, my answer is pretty much similar to you.
I actually find it really helpful. Sorry, just a side note. There was a time during COVID that Mazino did this Bible. No, it wasn't Bible study. It was like a Zoom link which she opened up and she basically invited people to come read their Bibles there and not like it was in total silence, which was interesting because it's not even like I was talking to anybody or whatever, but I literally cannot remember a time in my life where I was that consistent with reading and studying the Bible.
Really?
Yes, and I've just been thinking about it so much, and I'm just like, when people say when I think about these things, you should start it. I cannot.
Yeah.
I don't have the capacity to start anything right now. Okay, so I'm not starting it, but
Hmm.
it was just really good, like, because there's a time that everyone is going to be there. So if you're not there, it's like, what are you doing? Sometimes I'm tempted to like try to recreate it, but at the same time, it's just not the same. Like COVID was just a different universe altogether. So I'm also wary of trying to like put things that aren't in the same time zone in a different time zone. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's so good. I've been guilty of trying to recreate seasons
Mhm.
of my walk with God, like now, because
Mhm.
it's so crazy. When I think of when I was most into my Bible, like I was in love with what I was reading, you didn't have to tell me. Like I didn't need an alarm. I was there front
Mhm.
and center on my Zoom. I don't know why. It was like 2019 and I had all these highlighters and markers and this study Bible. I
Mhm.
think it was my first study Bible that I bought. And so, would you believe in an attempt to recreate that now? I went and bought another study Bible. I bought highlighters. I bought all the pens because I was like, no, surely this is what made it like wow to me. It didn't work.
Yeah.
It didn't work the same way. So heavy
Yeah.
on the stop trying to like behold, I'm doing a new thing. Like let's see
Mhm.
what God is doing new now. Okay, so friend, today we are talking about well, this whole season is about trusting God. And today we're talking about trusting God with your love life. Very excited for
Mhm.
this conversation. One, because I know a little bit about your story. Two, because you recently got married. Can I still say
Yeah.
recently? Was it recently?
I mean, if you think 5 months ago is recently,
Okay, this year. You
it's,
got
yeah,
married this year.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty recent. Hmm.
And so I feel like there's so much in between, like where I knew your story from to where your
Hmm.
story is now, that I think
Hmm.
a lot of people will be able to relate to and benefit from. And so I'm just really excited to dive into this conversation. So that being said, what has trusting God with your love life looked like over the years? You can share a story if that's helpful. And how has that trust shaped your life?
This question is so good. I would say my whole life. Well, let me say my whole Christian life. Let me say that. Like since when I actually started to walk with God, I feel like this is one thing that I have actually trusted God with a lot more than other things. And I think it's because of the generation that I don't know whether it's appropriate to say it's the generation that we come from with the whole like obsession with find your Boaz and find this that. Like, when you're a bit younger, it just feels like it can almost become an idol. But anyway, when I was younger, I basically started working with God properly when I was about 17. And I'm about to turn 24 in a couple of months now. So just to give you context, it's been about 7 years,
Mhm.
give or take. So I would say my whole Christian walk, I have definitely trusted God with my love life, but it also has been influenced by what I've seen online. I've been someone that has watched YouTube for a very long time. So there was an era on YouTube where people were always talking about of how to basically hear the voice of God when it comes to even your love life. I think that's something that intrigued me because I didn't realize, like, part of my coming to God was realizing that He was in everything, not just like the seemingly big things
Mm.
like, oh, school, work, life, He was actually interested in my love life. And I think that's something that I didn't realize for a very long time. So when I then came to realization, it was like, exciting. It was a shock. It was like, okay, this is really cool. And so I would say from when I really just couldn't discern anything, I wouldn't even say that I'm the best at discernment now, but it's definitely better than what it used to be, that's for sure. And I also think my frontal lobe has formed more, so that just also helps, apart from just being spiritual, like let's just cut to the
Yeah.
chase. But I would say from then till now, I have trusted God the whole time. I've involved God the whole time, but then that has looked different in different seasons. So At first, when I started, it was like consistently asking God in prayer, like, what are you saying? But then not really having the expertise to even hear or know what he was saying, to be honest. So it was just like that childlike face of, okay, God, I know you hear me. If I see a red bird flying today, I'll know you said yes. You know, that kind of like just flawed way of trying to really understand what God is saying. And then now, fast forward to now, trusting God with my love life has actually turned out to be almost a monument of my life. I want to say a monument for an altar of remembrance, which is interesting because it's making me think of, Bethel when was it Jacob? He was like, the Lord will say, I didn't know it. Basically setting up that like altar of remembrance. And I really feel like that really mirrors my own love life now because I feel like it's something that I always refer to and I will always know that was a symbol of no it is and was a symbol of God's faithfulness to me and what trusting God can do because in the midst of all the things that didn't work out, I am now here, and that's not to say that this is the end, but this is a huge like milestone. So being here now for me signifies that God is faithful, God can be trusted, and it's just like proof for me every single day that I wake up. I know it's only been like 5 months, but still.
I like what you said about an altar of remembrance was really profound because I was listening to, I don't even remember whether that was a podcast, a sermon, something about how we've lost the art of making altars and places where we remember that this is where God showed up and this is how he answered my prayer. And so that ends up looking like the result of that is we go down the line and we're like, oh God, like, are you really faithful? Because we didn't mark that place of like, this is where God showed up for me. So was there a moment or was there a time when you weren't sure the life that you have now, the love life that you have now was possible?
Absolutely. Like, absolutely. I would say, so after I went through, so before I met my now husband, I had gone through a breakup, which, Morewa, you actually know about, but the rest of the people don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had just gone through that breakup, and for me, I think that's what even hurt the most is the fact that I actually trusted God. So I feel like if I didn't involve God at all, then I wouldn't even be so hurt. I would just be like, okay, well, I went into this in my own strength and this is what I get. But I actually felt like I trusted God now. Was that trust flawed? Yes, because there are many decisions that I made and things that I did that were absolutely out of God's will. But I thought in my naive, like, it's so funny, you guys. I wish, honestly, it's so funny to even think about what I did and just how I went through that situation and how silly it actually was. But now, it's funny to think back on, but it wasn't funny then.
Yeah.
Trust me, it wasn't funny then at all. So after that breakup and everything that happened, I was just so done with the whole idea of love and everything. It was like, yeah, I'm not interested in any of this. And one thing I find about God is that no matter what you say or whether you think you're not interested or not, He's still going to speak. So that Bible verse that you said at the beginning, I'm doing a new thing, can't you see it? Can't you perceive it? Bible verse, I kept seeing it everywhere. Literally, people were telling me, I'll read it in places. And it was just one of those things where I knew God was specifically trying to get through to me, but I was so irritated. I actually was like, I need you to stop showing me this Bible verse because it looks nothing like my life. And I just feel you're just playing in my face at this point. So just keep your Bible verse and I will be in my lane. I was so upset. Oh my gosh. I was so upset. Anyway, yeah, so that happened. And then I basically, like, some time passed and I just got to a point where I was like, I am not doing this anymore. But I realized now that I actually still trusted God because I still said, God, my next relationship, I pray to you and I really plead with you that it is my husband rather. And I'm not getting into any other relationship if it's not with my husband because I was just like, I'm done with this. Like, there's no point, And funny enough, that's what happened.
Wow.
Yeah. So it seemed like, okay, let me see, it seemed like God did hear me. I always mention this because I remember that day so clearly. I was literally at a bus stop. You know, but those people that be talking to themselves when you're driving, I was one of those people. Like I was that person. I wouldn't say I was down bad, but
Yeah.
something like that.
Hmm.
So yeah, I would say I definitely had moments, many, in fact. So yeah.
That's, first of all, very relatable. And I feel like that's how you know when you're going through it. When you're like, I don't care if I look crazy. I need to talk to God where I am right
Yeah.
now in public, and I'm going to do just that. Um,
Yeah.
I know you've spoken a bit about like where you were before, where you are now. Was there a turning point that you had to like surrender, that like, I don't know what I'm doing? I know you said when you prayed, what I want the next person I date to be my husband. Would you say that that was your moment of surrendering, to say like, I've tried this my way, it hasn't worked. Like, okay, let's try this your way.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that was part of it. Another part of it would be when I actually decided that I was content with my life. And I know that sounds so cliche. Like so many people say that, oh, when you start being happy with yourself, that's when the man comes. That's actually what happened with me. I actually didn't even want to be in a relationship at the time that I met my now husband. I was so happy with like the way my friendships were going because I really started to pour more into my friendships.
Wow.
It's so interesting. Like, why does it take heartbreak to for me to jazz up? Like, I hate that so much, and it's so embarrassing that I had to go through such a drastic situation to actually become a more decent human being. Because after that heartbreak, I realized that I was neglecting my friendships. I wasn't pouring into them. I didn't even know what it meant to pour into a friendship. Like, I didn't know all these things, and I learned all these things after the fact. And yeah, I would say that was my point of I was like so happy in the sense that I had finally gotten to the point where I was like, God, even if it takes 4 years, 5 years. Now, granted, I may not have known the gravity of what I was saying at that time, but I genuinely meant it. You know, when I'm so cautious that non-Nigerians listen to this podcast,
Yeah.
but there are things I want to say. But basically, you know, when people just talk like and just
Say
say
things.
things
Yeah.
just say things. That was me. I was like, God, even if it takes 5 years, I don't care. I was so like, I was like, God, I don't care. Like, I'm ready to be on this singlehood path.
Hmm.
Like, it wasn't as dramatic of saying I'll become a nun, but
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I was on my way there.
5 years, you were like, not a nun, but I'll do 5 years.
Yeah, that's just enough. Yeah.
So, okay, what here relationship that like was hurting you, wasn't ultimately good for you, because I mean you didn't end up marrying the person and it didn't work out, so we're going to conclude that it wasn't good for you, and now like you're married to the man of your dreams, like everything worked out. What would you say to somebody who is in the middle? Usually this kind of question comes at the end, but I don't feel like people should have to wait to the end to get hope. So what would you say to
Mm,
someone who is like, I'm in the middle, want to be content. I want God to be my everything. I want to be able to pour into my friends, without being obsessed by like the thought of when is my husband going to come? Is he going to be at this next church event? Is he going to be here? Is he going to be here? Is he going to be here? What, if you could give one, this is going to be challenging. So maybe if you don't have one, you can do two or three, but like one key piece of like advice or something that helped you on your journey to contentment and finding like satisfaction in God, that enabled you to say,
mm.
even if it takes 5 years, God, like I just want what you want from me.
Honestly, I think it's actually easier after you've been heartbroken because you don't have a choice. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, it's not funny, but it's actually really like it's funny when you think about it. But I honestly didn't have a choice but to, like when people say you are all that I have. Sorry, it's so funny, but God was literally
You lived that out. Yeah.
like that was my life. I wasn't just singing
Yeah.
those words. Like God was all that I had at that time because I literally thought I was going crazy. Like when people talk about heartbreak in a way that seems trivial, I just wonder, like, maybe it's like you've never had that experience, or maybe, I don't know, maybe you were just doing things a better way than I was, because I was not doing it right. And like when I say doing it, like the relationship, I don't think I handled that properly at all. But I would say because I didn't have a choice, I just like ran into God like in desperation, basically. I think it was from that place of desperation. So it wasn't even as if I had an option.
Yeah.
So I just had to run into God, you know. And it's interesting because even my mom sometimes, like, because I'm really close with my mom, so she knows a lot about stuff that happens in my life.
Yeah.
So even my mom sometimes references that time in my life, and she's like, "You were really on fire, Uzoma." And sometimes I'm like, "Okay, does that mean I'm not on fire now? Like, what are you trying to say?" I mean, and sometimes I have to check myself and say, like, "Hey, you don't have to wait for something dramatic to happen before you get yourself on your Zoom,
Yeah.
like in terms of your relationship with God." But to answer your question, what would help someone that is currently in the middle? I would say honestly moving your expectations, or first of all identifying what it is you're getting from this relationship or what you hope to get from the relationship, and realizing that this person is very likely to fall short. That source, the eternal source of the love and the acceptance or whatever it is that you're looking for, is actually in God. And I would say that's what that desperation is translated to in someone that's maybe not as desperate, but just realizing that God is the source of all these things. So if you continue to look to a relationship to fill a void that only God can, you will continually get disappointed. And it's easy to say that now, honestly, but I feel like this is something that you really have to experience before you really understand.
Yeah.
But I hope that helps, because I agree with you that more people need to talk about what to do in the middle,
Yeah.
because I find that a lot of people don't do that. Actually, I'm just remembering now that I think about it, in the middle of that whole turmoil and getting to that point of surrender, I remember I just used to speak to a lot of people. And Morewa, I think that's why I don't got around to speaking to you as
Right.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to speak to a lot of people and talk to people that have actually experienced something similar. I spoke to you and a bunch of like other people, and those conversations still resonate with me till today. And they happened years ago, which I think really helped me to feel like I was being carried along by God. In a sense, excuse me, in a sense, because I kept feeling so seen, like, okay, this person has gone through this, they didn't die, this is not a unique situation to
Yeah.
me. So yeah, I find talking to people really helps as well. Yeah.
That is a beautiful segue because one thing about me, I love people's stories. Like, I'm a big believer in this whole concept of someone, like, and I've probably mentioned this on the podcast before, but like, you're always at the valley of a mountain someone is already at, or on the
Mm-hmm.
mountain of a valley someone is currently in. And so, my
Mm-hmm.
big thing, even with the podcast, is like, there is no unique human experience. Like, there's nothing you're going through that even the Bible says it. Like, it's not unique. No
Mm-hmm.
suffering is unique to you. And so, how did you were really intentional in surrounding yourself, and like, even if not you weren't surrounded by the people, but seeking out counsel, whether it was like trusted advisors or mentors or friends, what role would you say these is? I know you've spoken a bit about like how the conversations helped you, but like, why was it important to you to seek out these conversations?
I think it was important to me because I really just wanted to know that I wasn't going crazy.
Mm,
And because a lot of times it kind of felt that way, because I was always in my head, like thinking like, what should I have done differently? How could this have worked out better? Um, but hearing other people's perspectives made me see that number one, there would actually be an end, because that's something I really struggled with. I thought that I would never be able to heal from the pain that I felt from the heartbreak. It's so sad. Like I'm actually so I wish I could hug younger
Yeah.
me. But yeah, I just it was really important to see that there would be an end and one would come out of it. I think that was even what made me so comforted by your own story,
Mm.
Morewa, because I was like, first of all, why is this story so similar to mine?
Yeah.
And you're obviously out of it. So, I mean, there's hope for me. So, hope getting advice on what to do as well in the middle.
Mhm.
I don't believe that you must learn from your own experience.
Mm.
You can learn from others as well. So, just asking, like, how did you get through this in the moment? That was why it was also important for me.
Mm.
Uh, I think that would be it.
Yes, that was very insightful. I imagine that trusting God with your love life doesn't stop when you got married. It didn't stop when you got married. And so I guess my question now is twofold. What does trusting God with your love life look like now that you're married? And two, what does trusting God look like for you now that you're married with your love life specifically? And what is the role of mentorship in your marriage now?
Mm, yeah, so I think trusting God right now looks like, honestly, it's only been 5 months. So I wouldn't say there have been any real situations where I've been like, oh my God, this is the
Yeah,
end. Like, I've never even had that, to be
yeah,
honest. So, yeah. But trusting God looks like knowing that God will empower both of us to stay
yeah,
till the end, right? And I just keep thinking about Jude 124 says, blessed be the God our Father who will keep us from falling. This
yeah,
something along
yeah,
the it's like my husband's favorite Bible verse. He will so laugh at me if he hears that I just fumbled. Anyway, basically, God's promise to keep us till the very end, and I know that is pertaining to salvation
yeah,
mostly, but I try to relate that to other areas of my life as well, such as this marriage. Like whether or not we know what we're doing or we have the strength to carry ourselves, I just have to trust that because, and that's the beauty of when God brings you into something, you just know that you're not going to carry yourself through. Like, I know I had no business meeting my husband when I did. He didn't even live in my city at the time
wow,
that, like, he had just moved here and just moved to my church. And it was just, the whole thing was just weird and very much ordained by God because there was no reason that, like, I had no hand in it.
yeah,
That's basically what I'm trying to say. I didn't try to position myself anywhere or do any of those, 10 steps to meet your man, whatever. I didn't do any of that.
yeah.
And he also didn't. He moved here because he got a job here.
Mm,
That was literally it. Like, and he wasn't getting a job anywhere else. And for context, he lived in Toronto. So, like, if anywhere, he should get a job in Toronto
wow.
and not here in Ottawa, which is more like less, let me see, opportunistic. Like,
Hmm.
there's not as many opportunities here
Hmm.
as in Toronto.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it wasn't really by my strength at all or his. So just having that at the back of my mind really always helps as a reminder or as an anchor to know that no matter what's happening now, it's not going to be by my strength
Mm,
to pull us through
hmm.
because I didn't start this.
Yeah.
So I just look to God like, hey, you put me here,
Mm.
so are we going to like, can you help me?
Yeah, that's
You know?
so
So yeah.
powerful. I think you're in an especially good position to answer this question because 5 months in, I feel like so many women are navigating like, what does it look like for me to be a wife? Like, I don't know what
Mm,
that means. Like, I know we dated and I know now we're married, but like trusting God to even equip you with what you need to show up as the wife that your husband needs you to be.
mm.
But I wanted to open the floor again, like back to you. I didn't think you had finished answering the question.
Oh yeah, I didn't finish because you asked about mentorship as
Yes.
well. And that has been, in fact, I can't even from before we got married till now, I cannot talk about the success of my relationship without talking about our mentors,
Mm.
which is also another thing that tells me that God is very much involved with this because I only met them I met them at the same time that I actually met my husband, which
Wow.
is in 2021. Yeah, the end of 2021 is when I met them. Even though like we had been going to the same church, but we didn't know each other properly because COVID happened and everyone was just in displaced, places and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I met them and they have been a blessing in every way that I can think of, like spiritually, mentally, financially, even, which is
Wow.
crazy. Mentorship is something that I think is understated
Tell me
in the body
more.
of Christ. It is understated. The amount of wisdom that they have poured into us is, I don't even know how to quantify
Yeah.
just how big of an impact they've had on our relationship. Even when we were trying to be abstinent, when we were dating,
Mm-hmm.
we were so close to them that we would literally be telling them. We had a group chat. In fact, we still have the group chat.
Wow.
Yeah, we created a whole group chat and we basically were like, okay, well, this is not working, guys. So we need you guys to keep us accountable. So they would literally be checking in every time. If Daniel was at my place or I was at his place, they would just be checking in. Hey, have you gone home by this time? How are things going? Like that's just to tell you how involved they were. And even now, like we were at their house last weekend and we were just talking to them about some like things to do with in-laws and things. And when they were just giving us, their 2 cents, I was just like, God, I'm so blessed to be in a position that I don't have to guess
Mm-hmm.
with certain things. Like no doubt that our pastors are amazing, but our church is growing so much that
Yeah.
I cannot be calling our pastors all the time,
Yeah.
even though they would extend that invitation. But just having mentors has just changed the game, and it really helps to know that there's somebody that your spouse will actually submit to
Mm.
if anything was to go wrong, right? And that's something a lot of people don't have.
Yeah.
It's scary.
You touched on something right there because it's not
Mm-hmm.
just a woman submitting to a man and that man is the head of himself. Like there is
Mm-hmm.
a hierarchy. That man is supposed to be submitted to leadership, submitted to God himself. So that is so, 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 so good. And I'm glad that you emphasized the importance of mentorship because I think that is also an element of trusting God with your love life. It's saying like, God, I trust that you've put these people in my life that can counsel me and guide me and
Mm-hmm.
my husband. Um, big cloud of witnesses who is cheering us on this journey, and we are not siloed, we're not on this road alone. So I think even your submission, your joint submission, is a form of trusting God with your love life. So okay, I have another question. And I'm thinking about the girl or the guy who is in a relationship right now that they know is not good for them for whatever reason that there are many reasons why you feel a relationship isn't good for you, but maybe the person is struggling to trust that God has better for them. Like that, you know how the Bible says, your ways are higher than my ways and your thoughts are higher than my thoughts. I'll speak for myself in that when I was in a toxic relationship way before I got married, even though the relationship was bad, I don't know whether I was so lost in the sauce that I thought this is the best that I can get. And so even when all the signs were there that I should have walked away, I didn't want to because I was like, how can it get better than this? And I think ultimately it
Mm-hmm.
showed that my view of love and what I deserved was so flawed that like I thought that was as good as it was gonna
Mm-hmm.
get. Um,
Mm-hmm.
did you ever like struggle with thoughts of like, God, do you really have more in store for me? And if you did, how did you overcome?
The answer is yes, I did have those struggles. I think that struggle really stems from number one, a lack of trust in God.
Mm,
And number two, a lack of knowing who God is.
wow.
Let's just put it that way because there's no way, like, sometimes I think about my past and I'm just like, how did I ever think this was going to work out? Like, I feel like there's just something about when you're a bit younger, you feel like you're going to be that one in a million that, when everything else is saying, no, this is not going to work, you just feel like you're just going to be that one
Hmm.
that it'll work
Yeah.
for. I think that was going through an episode of that.
Okay.
And then I also, and now this plays into the whole hearing God's voice thing.
Hmm.
Had many erroneous confirmations. And for people that are listening on just audio, I put that in quotation marks. I had those and thought that those were things to stand on. Now that I'm a more mature Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Not where I want to be yet, but now that I'm a bit more mature, I realize that the ways that I was even going about hearing God's voice was flawed. I had the right intentions, but I was still erroneous. And that's one thing I love about Apostle Joshua Salman. He will always emphasize that it doesn't matter how genuine you are about trying to do something, if you're doing it the wrong way, you're not going to get results. And that's just,
Mm-hmm.
that's just what it is. But that's like a sidebar. But I struggle to think that I would get better because I thought that that was God's best for me at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, it can't get better than this because I've asked God, and to the best of my knowledge, this seems to be what God wants for me.
Mm-hmm.
So if this is what God wants for me, and I'll stay here. So it's just like, it wasn't even that I didn't think that I deserved better.
Mm-hmm.
It was more like, this is my lot in life, and God knows why He's giving this to me, which is even more dangerous because it's like, at least if you're not trusting God at all, you know that, okay, well, whatever happens, it's literally up to me. But now it's more layered where I thought that this was God's best for me, even though there were many signs that would point against that, which is why I always will mention having people around you when you're dating. Even mentors, if you have those, that's even more amazing. But if you can have friends that are sound spiritually around you while you're dating, and just making sure that your relationship is not a secret, that would really save a lot, like a lot
Mm-hmm.
of heartache. I feel like the friends I have now, if I had them back then, I mean, I don't know, to be honest, because maybe they weren't at the level they are now, to be honest. So maybe we would have all been wrong together. But if I had this level of like the friendships I have now, then around me, like, and I was telling them what was going on, I don't think half of what happened would have even happened. But yeah, so it's like, there's a Bible verse that keeps coming to my mind. When you walk in deep darkness and you think that you walk in light, how deep is that darkness? Like, I'm trying to remember the Bible. There's a particular Bible verse that basically talks about that. So that was my own case. So it wasn't even that I didn't think that God had better for me. It was just that, no, it wasn't that I didn't think I deserved better. It was just like, I thought this was my, I thought this was my cross to carry in life, which is crazy. Yeah.
Relatable. I too just thought, everybody has the thorn in their flesh. Maybe this is just my own. Maybe this is all keep me humble, keep me submitted.
Yeah.
That's so good. So would you say, it sounds like you're saying that community, you think, if you had, well, based on what you said about if you had the friends you have now, then you think maybe you would have made different decisions, or maybe you would have left that relationship sooner. Would you say that your community played a big role in your ability to discern your will versus God's will for your life in the area of your love life?
Absolutely. Because even before I was, God, even before I got together with my now husband, there was a bit of a situation where I had to kind of pick. It sounds so dramatic. My life is like literally like a telenovela sometimes. It's kind of crazy. Yeah. It was like a situation kind of where I had to sort of make a decision between two people. And my friend, who was actually my maid of honor at my wedding, she was so for Daniel. She was like, absolutely not to the other person. And I was like, you haven't even met this person. Like, what is wrong?
She's like, I don't need to. I know everything I need to know.
Exactly. No, she really was, she really, really embodied that role. And now that I think about it, like first of all, she is such a pivotal part of my life in general. But now that I think about it, she really played a huge part in that decision making, because it was almost like a life or death situation. Because if she did not express so much displeasure about the situation with the other person, I would not have given it as much. I probably wouldn't have given it as much thought as she did, and it would have been a harder decision for me to make. So I absolutely believe that community is important when it comes to discernment, especially with love life as a whole subject, because your feelings are involved. Like with anything else, you should be able to at least discern
Yeah.
to a certain degree. But when it comes to your love life, there's certain things you can't see if you're already catching feelings.
Whoa, say that
So,
again. Say that again.
like, why do we? I don't think that it's wise to try to make these types of decisions on our own, which is interesting because when I was younger, I would probably have a different view. I'd be like, oh, this is my business. Why is everybody like? Why should anyone be in my
Mm-hmm.
business? But it's like, actually, we need to be in a business so that you don't fall into a ditch.
Yeah.
Yeah, community is so important.
Yeah.
And I think that even now, I mean, granted, community kind of looks different when you're married because you also have to like protect your
Yeah.
marriage, protect your partner, all that kind of stuff. That's where mentorship comes in.
Yeah.
So community takes different forms at different stages.
Yeah.
My answer is yes, after all that rambling.
And that was so good. Okay, so I have been like jumping back and forth. I feel like I'm in one of those movies where they like rewind and then they go into the future and then
Hmm.
they come back. So I hope everybody is tracking with my timelines here. But okay, so now we are like in my mind, we are back in the middle. But like you are in the middle, you've surrendered, you've told God, like, you're my everything, I'm content with you, even if it takes 5 years. And then your husband Daniel comes onto the scene. And what is your heart posture at this time? Like looking at him, like you're so content with God. What was the process of like surrendering to the possibility of love again after heartbreak? And the second part of this question is we hear a lot about red flags to look out for in a relationship. But what were some green flags that you saw in your husband that made you feel like maybe this is something that I can learn to like I can somewhere learn to trust to love again or to
Hmm.
surrender to the possibility of love again?
Okay, so for the first part of what you asked, what was my heart posture at the time? At the time, it was still not looking for a relationship. And it's weird because we had sort of formed some sort of acquaintanceship before feelings even got involved. Like it was one of those things where I almost feel like it snuck up on me
Hmm.
because I didn't see him like that at all. So first of all, I wasn't even in that mind
Mm-hmm.
space. Like all I was doing, because I was even in school at the time, I was just like, I need to go to school, and I had a job. I need to go to work. I need to, do my church things, and that's it. Like I wasn't trying to be in any sort of relationship, and I was still even getting over the previous
Mm-hmm.
heartbreak
Mm-hmm.
situation. So I was like, this is weird. Like when the feelings started to creep up on me, and I could tell that he was also getting to that point, but he wasn't even saying anything, which was even more annoying to me. Because I was like, I didn't even ask, like, I'm very fine without this, like I'm so good without this. But you can just tell when a guy actually is feeling you.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, Daniel was just not vocal. And so that was even more annoying to me. So I was just like, God, I give you, you do know that TikTok that's like, do you know you have 30 minutes?
30 minutes.
30 minutes. Okay. That was literally me like, do you know you have 30 minutes? Like, if you're not serious, get out. So, oh my gosh, if only I knew what I know now.
Mm-hmm.
But at that time, I wasn't, I was just in a very nonsense thing.
Yeah.
When I started to get feelings, I was like, God, I hate this because now I'm like getting invested. And this guy's not forthcoming. I'm not dealing with any sort of rubbish again, like,
Mm-hmm.
please. So, yeah, so that was my heart pressure at the time. But then I kept praying about it. And again, kept talking to my community and telling them, how I was feeling, what was going on, all that kind of stuff. And I feel like throughout that process, because even another party was involved, like the other
Mm-hmm.
person that
Mm-hmm.
was also sort of thinking about as well, I was just really, really wanting to make sure that I was making the right decision. That's where the green flags come in because I knew that I was praying about it and I was trying to be intentional that we that I didn't get too stuck into things that I couldn't think properly. And so I was happy that I was that intentional. And even till now, Daniel still speaks about it and he's like, wow, you really gave me a run for my money at that time. Because and I was just thinking like, can you blame me? I don't want to go through I literally cannot handle another heartbreak in my lifetime right now. So I don't have a choice but to be very, very vigilant and on guard. But basically would say the green flags involved seeing that he was actually um a very sacrificial person. He did this in different ways. So at the time that we started like intentionally talking and things like that, started getting to know each other. Like there are times we would go out together, like to the grocery store or whatever. So there's a time we went to the grocery store and I just saw this fleece that I really liked, but I wasn't going to buy it at the time because that's not even what we went there to buy. But I had just expressed, oh, this is so nice, not even in a way that's like I was trying to get his attention to know that I liked it at all. It was just one of those things in passing. And so, funny enough, then a couple days later, and that day I was already like, okay, Daniel is not forthcoming, and he has 30 minutes. In fact, 15 at this point. He has 15 minutes, and I was just like, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna go for it. Next thing, he shows up to my house with that fleece. And I was so touched. I was like, oh my God. First of all, I didn't even know you were listening to me. You got this for me, all that kind of stuff. And I could just tell he was like, wow, God really helps me with this one because my time was up. Because by that time, I was getting to the point where I was just like,
Yeah.
what is this guy doing? Like, I was getting mixed signals. But then he started doing things like that. And I remember, because I used to work in a hospital, so I used to do 12-hour shifts and also have school. And he would literally make food for me because he was working at the time, so he had graduated. Working at the time, he would cook food for me and bring it to my house because he knew that I was busy.
Mm.
And at that point, I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Okay,
Everything
okay,
is
okay.
green.
Everything is green. Everything is green. And I know it's not just about food or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, how about the time my MacBook that I had just gotten? I lost my no, my I got WhatsApp. Someone put what's on my MacBook. I spoke about it to someone in church. My pastor overheard me. The church got me a new MacBook. Okay, first of all, that was crazy. Then I had the MacBook and I lost it on a bus. So I now called Daniel and I was like, hey, crazy story. You know the MacBook they just got me? It's lost. I called him while he was at work and he was like, what? And I was literally screaming. I was so, like, I don't remember the last time I cried the way I did that day. I was so devastated because there's so many reasons to be devastated at this. First of all, now I don't have a laptop again.
Yeah.
And second of all, I just got this by reason of what I felt like was even a miracle because I literally did not talk to my pastor about this. He just overheard me.
Wow.
So now, then I was like, okay. So he left work and started going on all the different buses that
No way.
the girl. He started going on. He started going on all the different buses that I could have been on and asking each bus driver if they had seen a MacBook. And at that time, I was just there, like I didn't know obviously all this was happening at the time. And this was like fast forward to when I now got a job on campus. So I was on campus, I was just crying. In fact, I was there for my shift. I didn't do my shift. The managers were just like asking me what's going on. I was just crying. I was just like, I don't know where my laptop. It was a whole mess. Oh my God, it was so messy. Anyway, Daniel shows up on the scene with my laptop. I was like, yeah, he found it because he waited at the stop. I think that I had gotten off of, and he was just asking each driver. Finally got the laptop, and I was like, "Oh my God!"
And you didn't marry
That
him
was,
on the spot?
I would have done that if I could. So that day, I was like, "Oh my God!" And then I think at that point, Daniel was basically like, "Okay, can you see now? What else do I need to show you?"
He's a good man, Savannah.
He's a good man. Like that day was so pivotal. And it was weird because it was around the Hallelujah challenge. There was a Hallelujah challenge that was happening, and Pastor Nat kept like emphasizing, "Oh, pray for your spouse if you don't have one." So I was really actively praying for that. So it was interesting that it happened around that time as well. That same Hallelujah challenge time, because I even have a video on my YouTube channel where I spoke about the whole miracle of the laptop, just for it to get lost. And Daniel found it. And then, from that day, I was like, okay, this guy is serious. Like, he's actually, he's actually serious. And I don't have anything to doubt. So, in terms of green flags, very sacrificial, kind.
Intentional, thoughtful. I can even write this list for you based on the stories you've just told me.
And that's just a couple.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, whenever people look at me and they think that I got married too young. I'm like, you don't know what I've seen, okay? You don't know what I've seen. And it's okay for people to think that I got married too young. That's totally fine. That's their
I
opinion. I
know.
don't mind.
It's so subjective because I feel like most people just mean younger than me. Like, it's
Yeah.
crazy. Okay, I'll ask you this question and then the last question I'll just have you pray.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought this up because I want to know what it was like for you to trust God in terms of the timing of your love life,
Mm-hmm.
specifically with you getting married. Because similar to you, I think I got married when I was 20. Let me do the math real quick. This is 2024, right? I was 24 when I got married, and had a lot of people telling me, "Oh, wow, you're so young," and I'm like, "Really?
Hmm.
24 is young to get married?" But like, I had to be confident enough in God's timing for my life that I wasn't blown, like I wasn't phased by what people were saying. Not to say it didn't affect me, but that was the point I had to get to for it to not bother me. So, what did
Mm.
trusting God with the timing look like for you in a culture that is so vocal about what everybody is doing and what timeline everybody should be on? What was that journey like for you?
Honestly, it's so funny that you're asking me what was that journey like because I'm
You're
still on
still
the
in it.
journey.
Okay. So what is it
Yeah.
like? How are you navigating this?
I think really looking at what's in front of me helps a lot because I know that all the things that have happened in my life so far have not necessarily been planned by me specifically. I know that my getting married now was probably a shock to lots of people, but I would say that trusting God has really been intertwined with the whole journey so far to this point. Like, it's a thing of, I knew that getting married was the right thing to do because I had nothing to lose
Mm,
and everything to gain, actually, by getting married now. So I don't even think that I really had to trust God
mm,
because I didn't feel like, when you have, a lot of times you trust God when you feel like you can't see a way out or it doesn't seem right or it doesn't feel, but for me, it seems very right and it feels very right. And that's not to say that we should go based off of
yeah.
feelings, but just basically thinking about the journey and how we've gotten here. And even now, like how life is now, I know that I made the right decision.
Wow.
Although sometimes I will think about, like, you know, me being on social media as well, like people talk all the time and will make weird comments, backhanded comments. Even people I know
Yeah.
and that know me will make like weird tweets, weird comments, things like that, that basically communicate to a subsect that I am part of.
Mm-hmm.
And now they might not think they're talking directly to me, obviously, but I know it's about me.
Mm.
And I know it's about people I know because I've been in my city, like there are many people that, like, if fact people talk based on what they see from me, my friends Brandy,
Is this
and
like the whole
Tofi.
like people in Ottawa are getting married? Like
Yeah, they talk based on what they see with us, but they don't know that there's so many more
yeah,
people. Like there's so many more people. So there's only three of us, and that's just because we are content creators, and so you
right.
think you're seeing everything, right? There's so many people that are getting married. Like people don't even realize
You're
that this is a
joking.
thing now.
People say that they want to move to Ottawa because apparently everybody's
Yeah,
getting married there. I was like, okay now.
honestly, I don't know what's in the air here. Honestly, I
Maybe
can't
it's
lie.
the
I don't blame them.
Lord.
Maybe. Who knows? Who knows? But I wouldn't say I've had to really trust God. I think it's just I've had to always remind myself, like, look what you have. You couldn't have made the wrong decision.
Mm.
So if ever I am, and Mara, actually, a mutual friend we
Mm-hmm.
have that lives here as
Mm-hmm.
well, we speak about this quite often because we're like we come from the same sort of background, the types of friends we
Yeah,
had before
yeah, yeah,
now, you know, and it's very strange to
yeah,
them, which is fair
yeah,
enough. But like, I just have to remind myself, like, look what you have
yeah.
and look what you had
Yep,
before when you were living life according to
girl.
what they thought was normal. Mm.
Heartbreak. You had heartbreak.
And it was very ugly.
Yeah,
So I didn't, yeah.
that's good.
Long story short, I know God is leading me
That's good.
in this one.
Yeah. So you
Yeah.
trusted God's leading. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah,
And I think that
basically.
that's so key because people are gonna talk, but I think the unshakable foundation is knowing. Like I don't remember who said it in the Bible, but like my confidence comes from knowing that God sent me. So like that's what I trust. I trust
Mm,
that God sent me here. So it may not be according to your timeline. It may not have happened the way you thought it should have happened. But my trust is in the
mhm.
fact that God goes before me and He called me here. It wasn't a group call when He called me. So it's okay that you didn't hear it.
Yeah,
What I heard, and I'm gonna
so
keep
good.
going. So that's really
Yeah.
good. Okay, so can you say a prayer for um the person who's listening to this and they've lost hope, or they're struggling to hold on to hope, to trust that God is really for them in the area of their love life. Maybe everyone around them is getting married or like finding their person, and they feel forgotten, they feel left behind, um and they just really, even if they don't know this is what they want to believe, they want to believe that God is for them and He has good things in store for them in the area of their love life. Can you just say a prayer for these people, this person, as we close?
Yeah, absolutely. Father, I thank you for everyone listening to this podcast. I thank you for every person that Moira has just described. I just pray, God, that you would show up in tangible ways, because I know that's what you did for me. I pray that you will show up to them in tangible ways that will make them know that you are actually there, number one, and number two, that you care enough for them, care enough about this part of their lives to not make a mistake. I pray that you will show up in signs, whether it's through people, whether it's through Bible verses, whatever, the same way that you did for me. And just remind them that you have a plan for this part of their lives and you're not a careless father. I pray that you would show them these things, that they would know without a doubt that you have spoken to them. And I just pray that you would make allow them to have this same kind of monument in their life where they can look back and say, actually, this is something that I trusted God for, and He was so faithful to me in this thing. I pray that you would give them that assurance that no matter what it looks like right now, or what they see or what they can't see, that you are more than capable. You are more than capable to make sure that your will comes to pass in their lives, whatever that looks like. Very careful to say that your will comes to pass, because sometimes it doesn't look like what we imagine, but it will always be good. That's one thing that we are sure of, because you are good. So I pray these things for these people in Jesus' name, and I pray for faith to rise in their hearts as well, for them to believe that these things are possible and that they will happen. For in Jesus' mighty name we have prayed. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, girl. Thank you so much for your time. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you. And I just so many people are going to be blessed by your testimony.